Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm gonna go ahead and film my wrap up. It's not quite the end of October, but unless I read some shorter books, short stories, I'm probably not gonna get anything else done. Which, yeah, it's possible that I could read some short stories. I do have a couple Stephen King collections, short story collections, and novella collections, and then I just went to the library. And one of my books is more middle grade YA, and I usually get through those a lot faster, so I might be able to get that. And it's actually the Twisted Tale, one of the Twisted Tales. Which I feel like that's a series where I have to get it. I can't read one right after the other. It's just best if I read them periodically throughout, because it would get after a while it would get exhausting reading. Not that the books are hard, but that kind of, like, a lot of times middle grade and YA can get repetitive, and the writing style is very much more simple, which is not a bad thing. It's just sometimes I want a more challenging writing style, more adult writing style. So but I could probably get that through. I might be able to squeeze that one in for October. But these are all the ones I've finished. I think my goal for next year, I'm going to go back to going with a smaller goal. Because it was the goal I had this year, it was more like one I wanted to prove I could do it, that I could read, which I know, it shouldn't be about that. It should be just about enjoying yourself with your reading and about the quality of what you're reading. But I wanted to try it. It's, challenges are fun. So let's talk about what I read in October. So I tried to do a mix of Victorian, but I only got through, I actually read only really one Victorian novel, I just noticed. I did start some, I started reading Our Mutual Friend and Armadale. But I knew I wasn't going to finish those. So, I read two Victorian novels and finished. So, the first one is Dracula. This is my second time reading it. I already did a review, so I'm not going to say much here. I definitely like it a little bit better than when I was a teenager, but it just, after a while, it got very, I was like, okay, I need to be done with this already. I want to finish this already, and, spending too much time explaining things and preparing for showing that they were preparing for their fight against Dracula, and it's just after a while, and I kind of skimmed the end. I already knew what happens because, of course, the Francis Ford Coppola movie adaptation, and then hearing other people spoil it for me, and the ending is, very kind of lame anyway, and it doesn't have as much Dracula in it which I kind of knew that from watching Murphy Napier's review on this, which is so that's a bit disappointing. There's characters I do like Dr. Seward, Van Helsing. Van Helsing's very entertaining and is, although there are times when he gets a little too wordy when explaining things, but I still loved his character. I found the whole Dr. Seward and Renfield dynamic really interesting. I really loved Renfield's character because, he's just so straight. He's weird and kind of little crazy because he came across Dracula, and he eats bugs, and there's that whole life, blood is life, and if I absorb the blood of these animals, these creatures, then I'll, and, but he's also very honest. If he doesn't like you, then he'll tell you. He tells Van Helsing and Dr. Seuss straight up he doesn't like Van Helsing. He really liked Mina. He had a soft spot for Mina. And, I liked the beginning part with Jonathan being trapped in the castle and how he responds to that and all the weird shit that happens to him. And I also liked the whole Lucy storyline. And, there were bits and pieces that weren't interesting, but after a while I was just like, okay, get to the point, get to the exciting part. And again, this was another one of those stories where I read, I know the movie, the Francis Ford Coppola movie, so well that it kind of ruins the book a little bit, the appeal of the book. But I'm sure when it first came out, it was amazing and so atmospheric and creepy, and he's really good at atmosphere. And I feel like you at least gotta try to read this book. Granted, I know like epistolary novels, which aren't for everybody. It's basically the whole like letter novels written in like letter form or diary form. I know it's not for everybody. Um, but this is the one that kind of next to Carmilla, which Carmilla is what inspired Bram Stoker. But this one is what we know about all the rules and all the things about vampires came from this book. Like the turning into a bat and the garlic thing, which I'll say it again, I find that really silly, the whole garlic thing. And I don't understand, yes, I get that it makes your breath smell, but why, to me it's weird that vampires, the stinky garlic, I can't stand the garlic, it's gonna make me sick. I mean, I guess if maybe there is that Dracula movie, the Dracula Untold movie, where maybe he was allergic to garlic or something. Although all vampires are garlic phobes, so I don't know. They don't have the sunlight thing though. The sunlight thing is not in there, and like them shapeshifting into whatever animal they want to, like the whole tying wolves to vampires, their connection, and like basically all the vampire myths and myths about vampire myths and all the facts about vampires came from this book. I love this copy though. I love these word cloud classic editions. I like how they're different colors, and then they have quotes, and then they have the title, and they have the quotes and the title imprinted on the flexi-bound cover. And then the end pages are sometimes have an image in them. So, I think at least try it. Try Dracula. Because it's not the worst book. It's just sometimes after a while, it's like, okay, get to the point. Okay, so I read that one. And then I decided, I didn't finish this one next, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. Throughout the whole month, almost the whole month, I read Dacre Stoker and J.D. Barker's Dracula, which is the origin story. It's a fiction. I think it's considered a fiction. It's based on fact, but I think it's done in a fictional way, if that makes sense. Where you have, it has the real Brom and his siblings. And it's kind of, I think it's based on, Dacre Stoker, who is the great grandnephew or grandson of Bram Stoker, and J.D. Barker, which I don't know about his work. I have to look him up. But in the story, in quote unquote story, Bram was a very sickly child, and he ends up being saved. Like his uncle tries to save him using leeches, but it doesn't really do much good. And then him and his siblings had this nanny, Ellen Crone. She somehow saved his life. And all of a sudden, after that incident, she disappears. And since then, he's had this weird connection with her. Like, he can sense her. And, they catch her, they track her, they find her. They see her one last time, and they see her do this weird thing where she disappears into a bog. And him and his sister, his sister Matilda become obsessed with finding out what happened to Ellen and where she's been, and eventually they tell their brother Thornley about it as well. and it turns out that Ellen might be connected to this mysterious figure known as Dracula, and it also might be connected to Thornley's wife, who has been acting rather sickly and strange, and so the three three Stoker siblings, along with a few other allies, one that is probably, which I think one man who I think is the inspiration for Van Helsing, go on this quest to track down Ellen and then possibly find Dracula and figure out who he is and what his deal is. This, just like Stoker's novel, creates such a chilling atmosphere, and I think because it's a modern novel, it does, it takes away some of the long-windedness of the original and makes it more exciting and action-packed and fast-paced, and just like it doesn't, but it also pays homage by writing. It's written in diary format, so we get the diaries of all three siblings. Well, actually, we get the diaries of the two boys, Brom and his brother Thornley, and then we also get these letters that Matilda writes to Ellen that she never sends, but she's so desperate to reconnect with her and to find her, so she sends her these. She writes these letters to her, and it makes her feel it gives her comfort and gives her hope. All three siblings were just really interesting people, and I definitely want to read, maybe find a biography or something, or do more research on Bram Stoker. And it's such an interesting look at, how he came to write Dracula. And I agree, definitely gives you a new perspective on the story. Learning what could have inspired it, and what happened to this, what Bram Stoker was like as a kid. It makes me want to, like I said, do more research and learn the non-fiction aspect, what's the truth? How accurate is this book? Which, yeah, I mean, he's a relative, but, he had problem, because it's fiction, he might have had to change some things. It's so creepy, and, if you're a fan of the original Dracula book, or, I think you should check this out. It's a really interesting read, learning about getting another interpretation of the whole vampire genre through, reading this fictionalized take on the creation of Dracula. And I think Dracula plays a bigger role. I mean, he's still kind of looming in the shadows, but we see him a lot more in this book, I think, than in the original Dracula novel. So there are definitely a lot of things that Dacre Stoker and J.D. Barker improved on compared to the original novel, the original story. So, and I definitely would recommend reading the author's note, which gives kind of background on the writing of this novel. Okay, so next I got other Victorian novel that I read is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I've read both one each from Emily and Charlotte. I haven't read Emily's poetry though, and which I think that's the only thing she read. Wuthering Heights, and then she wrote poetry. I think that's it. Charlotte, of course, wrote the most, with Villette, the Professor. I can't think of what else. And while Agnes only wrote, I think, poetry, and then her two novels, Agnes Grey, and then The Tenant of Wildfield Hall, which I'm hoping to get I would love to get for Christmas, or at least buy it myself. So, like with Jane Eyre, this is about a governess. But unlike Jane, her experience isn't as great. In fact, it's probably more realistic. She ends up going through between two different families, the Bloomfields and the Murrays. The Bloomfields, I think, are the first family she meets. And it does not go well. The children are brats, they don't listen, and the parents just don't parent, and they're just tell her, oh, let the kids do what they want. And while and they're little kids, so I feel like it's even harder because in fact, recently I was helping my mom watch my nephews and my niece, and even though they're great kids, they're very good, and their parents are involved in do their job, they parent them, but those kids can be very stubborn and don't listen, and you're constantly chasing after them. And the youngest is a toddler, she's 1 year old, and will get into whatever she wants and will climb on tables and chairs and fall, and it's just, you're always constantly, worrying. I mean, we're always constantly worrying, and she has, like, fallen on my, she has fallen on my watch before, because, like, things can happen, if you look away once. So I'm always now, whenever we're in a hardwood floor space or whatever, I'm just more paranoid than ever. So yeah, it's hard taking care of little ones. And these kids, they're not as young as my nephews and niece, but they're not teenagers either. And they don't listen. They're constantly dragging her around, telling her, and the boy is the worst one, because he's like, his dad and uncle are all cool with him mutilating birds and torturing them because, they're annoying, so it's okay. They don't have a soul. I mean, I don't know if they actually said that, but a lot of people, I think, say that animals don't have souls, which to me is so stupid, doesn't make any sense, because considering how loving animals are, no matter how much you treat them, to me that proves that they have a soul. But anyway, and he's just such he acts like he already runs the house, and he's just a kid, so he's a child, and he acts like he's already the family patriarch, and he's like, no, kid, you're not the head of the family yet, you're still too young. And Agnes can't do anything. There's only so much she can do. I mean, even today, whether you're a nanny or a parent, or like a grandparent, or an aunt, or an uncle, or an older cousin, there's only so much you can do as far as disciplining, because they're not your kids. You don't have a right. So Agnes, a young woman who doesn't have this is her first job, is expected to control these kids, but of course she can't do anything and has to let them get away with whatever they want, because the parents don't just care. The parents don't care. And I see that all the time, in fiction they do that kind of situation a lot, where, so I'm wondering I'm assuming that's true, and that's how it can be for a lot of families, where the parents just don't parent their kids and they just hire someone to take care of them. And it's like, you're supposed to do your job, and your kids follow your example. Your kids will behave how you behave. And they will not they probably don't even acknowledge that they did anything wrong. Agnes constantly was getting blamed, and they would be like, how could you let them do this, and how could you let them do that, and like, they will run around and get dirty, and it's her fault. It's like, she's a young woman, late teens, responsible for kids that do not listen, that are brats, that you let them get away with whatever they want. But you can't always get what you want. And it's just, I just want to strangle them, especially the boy. And to the point where Agnes is actually relieved when they fire her. She's, like, relieved. And which, it's so funny that, they probably assume that, it's the governesses, they're the ones with their problem. Our kids are perfect little angels. And so I'm like, you think every single person you hire is a terrible governess, yet they have the job. You think, you're going to blame everybody, and you're not going to once even consider the possibility that the reason why they can't handle your kids is because you let them get away with whatever they want. That doesn't even cross their minds. It kind of makes me think of the scene in Sound of Music when Maria first meets the kids, and or right before she meets them, actually, and the captain is explaining to her how he wants her to do things and how she should treat the kids, and he says that we've been through several governesses and none of them have been able to discipline my children and do what I ask. And Maria's first thought is, wait, what's wrong with these kids? Like, what's wrong with the children? And he turns to her and is like, nothing's wrong with the children, only the governesses. Like, parents automatically are like, oh, it's not my precious little kids, it's the help. They suck. It's like, automatically, every single person that you hire conveniently can't do the job. It's like, just, you ever think about that stuff just once? Think about the possibility of that. It's kind of a weird coincidence that think that maybe you might be your kids and how you raise them, how you let them get away with whatever they want. And then she ends up with the Murrays, and they're not as bad. They're wealthier and they're a little bit more tolerable because the kids are teenagers, and eventually, the oldest will, go off and get married. But oh my God, they're such vain little girls. They're just so but they're willing to have a conversation. And the oldest girl, we spend most of the time with the oldest daughter. I cannot remember her name. And she is so spoiled and so vain, and she's used to all the guys obsessing over her and fawning over her, even though she's not interested in marrying them. And she ends up, there's one man in particular that she has around because he has the right amount of money, and he's good looking, and but one of the ministers is also interested in the oldest daughter, and she's not, but she just enjoys watching him squirm and watching him fawn over her. And that's her way. She likes to basically emotionally torture the guy. And he finally proposes to her, and she finally can reject him. She's like, nope, I just enjoy watching you squirm. And then she proceeds to get mad and is bored and annoyed by the fact that he's not so distraught by it. He's angry at her, but he still does his job. He still, the next Sunday, he's still there, he's fine. He just avoids looking at her, doesn't even acknowledge her. His pride is probably wounded. And she's mad about it. She's like, how dare you not be all upset and depressed over me? You have to be that way. And it's just, so she's kind of funny. And, it's kind of amusing how she's so spoiled. And she just expects Agnes to constantly be her companion and listen to everything she says. And whenever Agnes gives advice and makes suggestions to her, to be a good girl, to do what's right, she's like, oh, you're silly, you don't know what you're talking about. And then what really made me like her less was the fact that, so Agnes does have a love interest, Mr. Weston, who is also a man of God, a minister, a priest, or whatever, and and there's only so much flirting the two of them can do. They can't really, today we can date, we can go on dates with people, and, there's no, negativity towards someone, it's not looked down upon or frowned on if you have sex before marriage with this person. And so there's very limited time that they can spend together. But they become friends, and they start becoming more than friends. And because of that one minister, priest, or whatever, kind of not showing that he's all depressed about her rejecting him, his proposal, she sets her sights on Mr. Weston and starts flirting with him. And she knows, because she even teased Agnes about it. She knows that Agnes likes him, and Agnes and Mr. Weston are starting to fall for each other. She knows that. And yet she and then on top of that, not only does she proceed to flirt with him, she comes up with excuses to not allow Agnes to go to church with them. Whenever they go to visit him or go to church, she's not even allowed to visit her one friend in town because Mr. Weston goes to see the woman and spends time with her, and I just want to slap her so badly, which it's so funny that there are times when it seems like she does consider Agnes a friend and does, but then other times she just proves that she has no respect for Agnes whatsoever, looks down on her, and doesn't, treat her as an equal. So I feel so bad for Agnes. She goes through so much shit with both families, and she can't do anything, can't say much. I mean, there are moments where she comes close to crossing a line, or at least saying what's on her mind, giving her opinion on things. But, there's only so much she can do, I mean, she could get fired. This is her livelihood. Like, her family becomes destitute, and so this is how she helps them. She gives them money. And, of course, her pride will not let her quit, because even her family was like, oh, you can't do this. You don't have a lot of experience. You don't have any experience, so how can you expect to do this? But at least her family were like, well, this means her mom and dad are like, well, this means something to you and you really want to do this, so we're going to let you do it. We're going to let you try it. And her sister doesn't like, oh, I told you so. She's just very happy to have her home when she comes back, and like, talks about how much she's going to miss her when she leaves, and, so their family is really sweet. Now, you definitely can tell this is written by someone whose father is a man of God and, a man of the church, a clergyman, because there's so many, throughout the whole novel, there's so many biblical references. And, in these Barnes & Noble editions, there's footnotes at the bottom. So basically, because a lot of Bible verses are really long, it's like, refer to verse blah, 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 and throughout the whole book, almost on all the footnotes. It's got to the point where you don't even need to read the footnote, because it's basically just going to tell you which you need to read this verse to get the quote. And like I said, the love interest is a clergyman as well, so, like, which, it's great. It's an admirable profession. And, if you're believe in God and, Jewish, Christian, well, I guess Christian Catholic, then, this probably, you'll understand the references, although I don't, because it's not like I read the Bible. I have never read the Bible cover to cover before. I mean, I know a lot of the stories, and I do believe in God, I just don't read the Bible. And Agnes almost seems a little too good of a character. She's like a little too goody-goody and perfect. And like I said, though, she does speak her mind a couple times, but she never really crosses too much of a line. So, and I thought her love story with Mr. Weston is really sweet. It's not as antagonistic as Kathy and Heathcliff, but it's not as, like, where you question Jane's judgment when she falls for Rochester. It's, where it's like, girl, you could do better. I mean, of course I always say that, but then I'm like, well, could she really do better? I mean, she doesn't have a lot of options. The only other option was St. John, and there's no passion or love between them. He just thinks she would be a great wife. So I kind of soft spot for their romance. It's very sweet. And I like how they grow to love each other and they start as friends first. Like, I like how it's, it's not just, it's like a nice reprieve from those epic, passionate love stories. Like, as beautiful as those are, as fun as beautiful as those are, sometimes it's nice to have a little soft, fluffy romance. It kind of reminds me of Jane Austen a little bit with the romance. And there is a character in Jane Austen, one of Jane Austen's novels called Mr. Weston. But anyway, so yes, this is a very sweet story, and okay, next, I finally read the book version of Phantom, another situation where I've seen the adaptation first before I read the book, but I finally read it. I had bought a copy of it once before, and I was going to read it, but then I was like, you know what, I'm just not interested, so I donated it back to the bookstore. And then I decided, and Emmy from Emmy Reads, I don't know if that's how you say what her channel name is. She talked about, this is one of her all-time favorite books, and she just loves this book. And so I decided to go ahead and try again. And so I bought this edition, and these are pretty cheap. These are not that expensive, these editions. And I let you guys know I love these covers, these bright colored covers. So in case you don't know, Phantom is basically a story of, in this mysterious phantom that people assume is a ghost, lives in the Paris Opera House, which is a real place. I was hoping to go there when my sister studied abroad in college for a semester in France, in Aix-en-Provence, and I was hoping to go there, but did not. I didn't get the chance to, and everything closed at 6 by the time we got back to Paris, so, to, our last night. Which, by the way, I've already did a separate review video, so I'm not going to really say much. And, the Phantom takes on one of the girls, Christine Daae, whose father was a famous Swedish violinist, takes her on as an apprentice and teaches her how to sing, and she is considered the Swedish Nightingale. But meanwhile, an old childhood friend of hers, Roland Dacheny, shows up back in her life and immediately falls in love with her all over again. Because when you're a kid, is it really love? And it becomes a bit of a love triangle. The problem is that I feel like it's not much of a love triangle, which I talked about this in the review, that I feel like it's really an uneven love triangle, because I don't even think she really loves either one of them as much as they love her. Like, she's scared of the Phantom, and Raoul is very controlling and obsessive of her, and he just doesn't murder people. That's the only difference. He's not a murderer. And he's probably she'll have more security married to Raoul. And it's just, so they're fighting, And meanwhile, the Phantom, there's a new managers are hired to take over manage the opera house. And Raoul kind of expects, them to give him a salary, so he kind of extorts them, essentially. And the rest of the novel is all about them. And that part of the novel is basically them trying to figure out who this mysterious Phantom is. They think there's not really a ghost, and it's all a con, and they're being extorted. And they're, obsessed with it. And just, go crazy trying to figure out what the deal is with this guy. And, it's also, what's interesting is this novel is not only a love story, but it's also a bit of a detective story. It's because the first part of it is basically you're being told the facts about the events that happened at this opera house, and then you jump into the story and you get the whole story of Christine and the two guys, which, by the way, neither option is all that great. I feel like, Raoul's a little more tolerable in the adaptations and the musical, but he's just such a control freak and a whiny little bitch in this one. And then the Phantom, of course, is a murderer, and it's so funny how a lot of people would rather the Phantom than deal with Raoul and his controllingness. And I'm just thinking, with my friends, granted, I like a lot of characters like Spike and from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I'm basically thinking he murdered people and he doesn't know the difference. He doesn't realize what he's doing is wrong. At least my argument is that Spike got a redemption by season 7, and but that's a whole other can of worms, and I don't want to debate that right now. I'm just, like I said, I bring it up because it's so funny how my friends would choose the Phantom over Raoul, won't murder people, he's just controlling and kind of gets jealous very easily. So he's I think Raoul is the lesser evil, but But it was still kind of cool reading this again, reading the source of material. But just like Dracula, I feel like this got lost in pop culture. Okay, so the last one I've finished, unless I finish something in this week, is Something Wicked This Way Come. And oh my god, I love this. I want to see the adaptation from '83. There was a 1983 adaptation that came out. Now I don't know if people are just saying this. Maybe they're just saying this because this story would be perfect for his aesthetic. But you know, people say they would love to see Tim Burton do an adaptation as well, and with Johnny Depp playing Mr. Dark, who is the villain of the piece. And I think I can understand why people would be wary, because a lot of adaptations just go bad, and some of them are just like decent movies, but they're not great adaptations, or they're just, you know, okay, they could have done better. Like I recently watched Channel Awesome, a nostalgia critic, did a review. I watched his review on Stories to Tell in the Dark, and in his review he talked about how there were aspects of that movie that were good, but it wasn't the best. It was not a great adaptation. It wasn't terrible, but it, you know, and it did the job, you know, but it was kind of like I think, for him. And you know, I know there's a lot of like ones like The Shining where it was a good movie but a bad adaptation. So I can understand why people will be nervous for someone to readapt this. Because, I mean, and I think from what I could tell, the original movie is great. Everyone loves the original movie. I actually saw it years ago. Many, many years ago at a sleepover, but I barely remembered it. And for some reason, I was thinking the main character was a girl. But, anyway. So, this is by Ray Bradbury, the guy who wrote Fahrenheit 451. So, and it takes place in this small town. And our main characters are Will and Jim, these two boys that are, you know, middle school age, probably. I don't remember how old they are. And they catch wind of a mysterious carnival showing up a little after midnight in their town. And this carnival seems to have a weird influence over the town. And a lot of these, and the carnival has this carousel that it will either push forward the clock or turn it back, as in, like, you know, give you back your youth or make you get older. But there's a price. So this was so good and so atmospheric. It's perfect to read this time of year, especially because it basically takes place the week before Halloween week. And it's such, like, there's such a mystery. Mr. Dark is such a great villain. He's scary, he's intimidating, he's unpredictable, you don't know what he's going to do, and he seems to be able to read your mind. He knows your deepest desires, and I think that is what makes a good villain. If one of the traits that makes a good villain is one that knows a little too much about you and understands you a little too well. And it's such a compelling narrative, and of course, Bradbury's writing, his prose are so beautiful and so poetic. But there is very little dialogue. So, and sometimes his writing, like, I feel like there are a few awkward sentences here and there, and I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea, this writing style. But it's like a fairy tale. It's like reading a fairy tale, like, where there's a lesson to learn, and you, like, you need to appreciate your youth while you can, because before you know it, you're gonna get old, gray, and wrinkly. And, which, yeah, I'm guilty of that, especially because, you know, people are constantly telling me, oh, you look so young, and in my experience, when you look like a teenager, people don't take you seriously, and they think you're all adorable and cute, and you're so nice, and people don't get why it bothers me, and it's like, yeah, because you talk to me like I'm, like, 16, you see me like I'm a kid or something, and I'm 32 years old. And, you know, and it's even more frustrating because I'm not the most mature person on the planet. I'm very immature for my age, and there's a lot of things I should, you know, I keep thinking I should be doing right now, and I'm not, like, living on my own, having at least one serious relationship, and But anyway, got off topic there. And it's just, it's such an amazing story, and it's so, like, mysterious. And one of the things I really like about this is that there is an adult character that offers the boys wisdom and helps them, and isn't just thinking, oh, it's just your imagination, you're being paranoid, or, or I must shelter you because, you're just a kid, you're too fragile, and, like, no, they're in these stories, the parents won't ever take the kids seriously. They just dismiss it, and then they get, something happens to the kids, something happens to them. So it's kind of nice that where these boys have an ally in Will's father. He believes them. He doesn't talk down to them. He trusts them. He takes them seriously. Like I said, the biggest thing is he believes them, and he, sees, and he isn't taken in by Mr. Dark, like everybody else. He knows that something is not right, and this guy is dangerous. So I really I want to have more stories where there's an adult character that supports the kids, trusts them, takes them seriously, doesn't talk down to them, and doesn't try to shelter them from the bad stuff. Like, he or she will still trust them to do the brave thing and to, know what they're doing and, and fight on their own. Which, there's nothing wrong with kid characters learning how to be brave. That's important too, but it will be kind of nice. It's kind of nice when they actually get these kids, that these boys have an ally in Will's father. We also get where it really looks into the idea of friendships and the importance of friendship, and these two boys growing apart because they have very different personalities, But anyway, this is such a great book. I definitely try it out. And it's not that long. The chapters are very short, there's some that are a little bit longer than others. But yeah, definitely check that out. Check this out. It's really good. And like I said, I want to see the 1983 adaptation. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Because it's hard to because I can't seem to find it. So it's going on my Amazon wish list. So I come across it. Now, actually, I want to show you what I got from the library. I'll be right back. Okay. Alright. Sorry about that. I know some people don't like what you do and think it's unprofessional, but you know what? I'm not professional, so I meant to grab my library books, but I forgot to grab them. And you know what? I'm lazy. I'm not going to refilm this. It was just a quick little thing. So, it is nonfiction. So, I probably should not have gotten these big chunkers of books because two of these books are chunkers. And I probably should not have gotten them, but you know what? But I picked them up anyway, so let's talk about it. Okay, so first, this is The Twisted Tale I got. And this one is by Elizabeth Lim. And the question for this one is, what if Cinderella did not try on the glass slipper? Which each of the Twisted Tales begs a question. So it's Cinderella's story, basically. And what happened if she didn't try on the glass slipper. Which actually, I wonder if she was kind of inspired by, the third Cinderella animated feature, where we have the fairy godmother, loses the wand, Anastasia finds it, and, she gives it to her stepmother, who turns back the clock and changes it so that Anastasia is the one that tries on the glass slipper and is the one that is supposedly the one that the prince danced with and everything. And this one allows for Cinderella, and that one allows for Cinderella and the prince to really get to know each other, have a few more moments together, and also for the prince to kind of get an actual personality. So I'm wondering if this was inspired by that. So this, I remember hearing about it and finding really finding it very intriguing out of all the Twisted Tales. One of the ones that's very intriguing. And then also, I actually watched Tati, I can't remember her channel name, where she did a review and then she started to go into spoiler territory, so I had to stop watching it because I actually wanted to read this. This is one of the ones I wanted to read. So sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm gonna read. So I'm gonna read this one next, and it's a quick read. You know, these Twisted Tales don't take that long to read, and they're very fast paced. Well, although I've only read one, so maybe this will be a little bit different, but you know. And then I went ahead and got. So I recently bought. Sorry, guys, you're in honest sunlight. That's why I moved over. Why I'm not filming in the spot I filmed last time, because of the sun, and now it's starting to shine on this side. So I recently bought, I didn't get it from the library, but I bought, Look Homeward Angel. I decided to go ahead and check this one out. It's a long chunker of a book, but I figure, you know, I'll try it out, at least read a little bit of it, and if I like it, maybe I'll buy it. I'll, like, maybe order it off of Amazon or put it on my, my thrift books wish list. And unfortunately, the part of the description on the back is covered, so I tried to read the back, but it sounds like this guy becomes a successful writer or something, and then he tries to come back home, and his friends and family the book he wrote was about his friends and family, and it kind of ruins his relationship with them a little bit, I think. So yeah, so I really shouldn't have borrowed this one because it's a chunker of a book, but I figured I'd at least read a little bit of it. So, and then the last one I recently watched, I cannot remember her channel name. May, she's friends with Elliot Brooks, and, yes, I'm so sorry. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that. I hope that doesn't mess up this upload. If it does, then it won't matter what I'm saying right now, because you won't see it. I'll have to redo it again, which probably will not. If I do have to redo this, I'll probably do it tomorrow or when I get home or something, or maybe on my next day off, because I'm already feeling the tiredness, the exhaustion. Not because I'm filming, but because, just tired. Long week, or past 4 days, I should say. So, one of Elliot Brooks's friends, this is one of her favorite books, and, I just watched her video on it, and, oh my god, there's, oh, shoot, oh, it's like a bill or something. They must have left it in the book. Must have left it in there when they returned it to the library. Wow. But I had heard a lot about this. It's one of her favorite books. Not everybody loves. I don't think everybody loves it. I mean, like, it doesn't compare to his Perks of Being a Wallflower, probably. But I figured I'll try it out. And again, though, it is a chunker, so I really probably should not have done it. But it was like I wanted to get at least something, and so far this one, along with the Thomas Wolfe book, was the most exciting. So next to as far as adult books, because I was actually hoping they'd have Goosebumps there, but they did not have any Goosebumps there. So that is my October wrap-up and my library haul. So what did you guys read in October? Did you participate in Victober and read any Victorian literature, or did you mostly stick to like the spooky stuff, or are you just not into the spooky stuff? Or like maybe you read thrillers. Well, either way, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I hope you're enjoying your reading, and good luck with your reading the rest of the year. I'm feeling a little bit of the pressure because I don't know if I'm gonna meet the 150 books goal. So, which is okay, you know. Like I said, I'm probably gonna go with this much smaller goal, like really small goal next year. And just try again the 150 books another time. But you know, because of that goal, I can't really get to the bigger books because, especially at this point, you know, it's because I know that when I read tomes, it's gonna take me a lot longer to read those and finish them. So, which I just got 2 tomes for the library. So, and it is nonfiction November, so I'm gonna read some nonfiction this month. Are you guys participating in that? Would love to know. So if you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And I hope you're enjoying your reading and staying safe. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!